Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live session on scaling automotive business with AI-powered conversations. Auto industry has always been an evolved and organized industry. It has showrooms to showcase new cars, large format garages to service them, and warehouses to buy and sell second-hand cars. Even the smaller players in the industry have these basic processes aligned. Earlier, customers used to call these showrooms for multiple inquiries on new models, a suitable time for service, availability of new cars, or second-hand cars. They had to wait on call for 15 minutes just to have a 2-minute conversation with the representative. Although it was a common practice, it seriously lacked great experience. Today, all of this is changing, and it's changing fast. Organized players, both big and small, are deploying technology to create a seamless customer experience. They're deploying chatbots and AI powered conversations to answer the first level queries of customers in a personalized manner, thereby reducing load on the experts who can then be aligned to do more complex queries. Now, be it checking new cars, booking services, sharing feedback, or buying or selling old cars, the process has become completely automated and customers can interact with the brand 24 cross 7. The customer experience is far more seamless and convenient in this case. It is quick, simple, and effective. And all this can be done while sitting at home in a matter of minutes. Increasingly, more brands in the automotive category are beginning to deploy this technology to make their operations leaner and efficient. So now, let us hear from our industry stalwarts on how they are using chatbots and how it is helping them. I now welcome the panelists for the day. My first panelist for the day is Mr. Ankit Manocha, Director Marketing, Cars 24. Welcome, Ankit.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for this context. Love to be a part of this discussion and happy to share my perspectives on how AI-powered conversations are helping us in our business.
Awesome. My next panelist for the day is Mr. Indrajit Rao, Co-founder and Chief Technology Officer, Fixcraft. Welcome, Indrajit.
Hey, thanks, Devesh, for inviting me in. Glad to be here.
Look forward to your discussions. My next panelist for the day is Mr. Akash Goyal, AVP Marketing, Go Mechanic. Welcome.
Thanks for the introduction, Devesh. Yeah.
My next panelist for the day is Mr. Somendra Rathore, VP Product from Droom. Welcome, Somendra.
Hi, Devesh. Looking forward to an interesting discussion today.
Great. Same here. My final panelist for the day is Mr. Ninad Takpere, VP Sales from Gupsha. Welcome, Ninad.
Hey, thanks, Devesh. Thanks for inviting here, and pretty glad to be part of the panel with other stalwarts being there, industry leaders talking about this particular topic, which is pretty interesting at my heart. Maybe I'll be able to look forward to see and gauge a lot of insights and maybe add value to the discussion as such.
Definitely, Nat. We look forward to your valuable inputs and also from everyone else in the present in the panel today. Glad you all could make to the today's panel. So now let's begin with the festivities. So my first question is basically to all of you, how does personalization make a difference in the automotive industry? And in your opinion, has the customer expectations evolved post the pandemic? I'll begin with you, Ankit, first of all.
Correct. So I'll answer the second question first, right? As far as customer expectations are concerned, right? And I think like I come from the used car space, right? Or the used car industry, right? Pandemic in terms of their financial health, right? In terms of how they want to commute, right? People are a little more cautious as far as commuting in public transport is concerned, right? So people want to have a mode of private transport, and there is this challenge of affordability. So people are preferring used cars over new cars, right? We have seen a strong traction in inquiries for used cars over new cars, right? And people are more cautious. They want the good deal for the amount that they're spending, and hence want a personalized recommendation in terms of which car will suit them the best, right? And there are a lot of first-time car drivers that are now coming into the industry, right? So which car will suit them best? What's the mileage, right? What's the budget amount, right? So I think there is this fundamental shift that we are seeing in terms of affordability, in terms of preference for a private vehicle over a public transport due to pandemic.
Interesting. Indrajit, what's your thought, on this? I mean, like, how things have changed, how the customer experience have changed, customer expectations have changed, post pandemic, and where does personalization make the cut, while you're reaching out to your audiences, prospective customers?
Yeah, Devesh, so basically I'll take this in context of fixed craft. Like we are in automobile repair industry.
Yes.
And personalization does play a big role here. The car owners basically knows the symptoms or the problems they are facing with the car, right? And each of them believe that it's somewhat different from the traditional packages that are available on the websites.
Correct.
So they want to be able to communicate to someone that these are the problem they are facing, and based on that they want a scope of work discussion. So it's more like a medical situation where you want the diagnose first and then you want the bill. You just don't want to pay a bill and put a blanket over it to fix everything that is there.
Correct.
In our case, this AI chatbot provides a very good classification or categorization into the issues that are mentioned, which help them recommend what they need to actually buy. This has helped us like to solve the problem from the point of view of the customer, rather than just providing some options on the website where he's selecting predefined options.
Okay.
This in a way create a very personalized experience for the customer without us deploying a lot of resources just to explain like what are the services and how to get that fixed.
Okay, right. Akash, what has been your experience?
I will try to answer this in two parts. So first one is like, what is the preferred mode of channel which is being used by the user? Are you trying to engage with them on your app itself, or is it the specific channel of like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger where the user is most active? So we should not force your users to on app itself. I think the preferred mode of communication should be either WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. Second point is during pandemic, we collected around 80 data points from every car which used to come in the garage. So we used to collect around 80 data points, and by that we were able to personalize that experience, and that is what basically helped us getting more and more insights and personalized communication, and further creating some user-centric package according to that need, like COVID car revival package, and if it's like rainy season, then it's a monsoon package. So this consumer-centric packages also actually helped during that time.
Yeah. Interesting. You touched upon a very interesting point. You just started out, the need for an omni-channel strategy that each brand, needs to have, for the entire customer conversation. We'll touch upon that, as we go deeper into the conversation. So, Mendra, what's your thought, on the subject, and how do you think customer expectations have evolved, and where does the personalization make that cut?
I think pre-pandemic or post-pandemic in general, as users are getting more acquainted towards upcoming technologies, right, and their expectations are aligned around getting better experiences on digital platforms. Right, people are, I think, getting very picky around what kind of personalized experiences they're getting on the platforms, right? So, for example, if someone is looking for a specific vehicle to buy, right, they want to see the entire page structured around what they want to look at, and value adds from the platform around recommendations, and any add-ons that the organizations have to offer. So and then of course, pandemic added the next level of touch, which is that the customer base suddenly increased because a public commute is something that is not being favored on. Right. People want to procure, buy cars or two-wheelers, and they want to maintain their distance from society.
True that. So Ninad, from the supply side, I mean, like, how can players in the auto industry, create that personalization and, create that, enhanced level of customer experience with the AI powered conversation and with the chatbots?
Yeah, in fact, it's an interesting point, right? So here one should look at from a perspective of where the consumers are, right? in a sense, Akash and Ankit, to an extent, touched upon, is the consumer's gravity is now moving towards more like expecting an instant gratification. And that is creating a lot of pressure, a lot of stress around the brands, A, to engage, and B, to satisfy that kind of expectation, right?
Correct.
So essentially, the customers, while the pandemic, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and during pandemic, there has been massive amount of behavioral shift which has happened to the consumers, right?
Right.
Because of there is a lot of restriction which has played around not only physically but also on their mind. Most of the consumers have carried forward the changed behavior even in post-pandemic area. So out here, the expectation from consumer has been there that the brand should be able to talk to them in a manner a human talks to them, right? So in a manner she talks to her own friends or relatives in the sense on a preferred channel of communication out here. So with the advent of massive growth on chat apps which are available, right? For that matter, Ankit did talk about WhatsApp being the preferred channel of communication for a lot of consumers which are there. So the personalization has taken a very primary driving seat, I would say, in the parlance of the topic which is there. Here, the brands are expected to really converse with the end user, stating and understanding the preference and liking and behavior of the individual customer. Now, whether it is there during the pre-purchase journey of the consumer, or it is there with the post-purchase experience which is required to be extended to. So coming back to your question on how the brand should be able to really extend the personalized conversation and give that real human touch to overall customer engagement and experience, I would say that they should look at as to where the consumers are gravitating towards. Correct. In terms of what is the preferred channel of communication which is being adopted. B, look at the area of problems or stated objective within the organization in terms of growth for the organization per se, and what are the kind of pain areas which are required to be given as an immediate attention from consumer side point of view, and build solutions around it for end consumer to interact and get their queries or complaints or their way of communicating with the brand satisfied completely.
Interesting. You brought to fore, multiple subjects, focusing on the consumers, talking about the pain areas, how the brands, should be able to, identify their objectives, while they're deploying this technology. And, moreover, I think it's about, the acquisition of it. So, coming back to Ankit, in your experience, how has AI-powered conversations in chatbots, really helped your brand in terms of product discovery, or feedback or transactions, or in multiple aspects of the business? I mean, like, what are your observations, with the use of chatbots?
Correct. So, Devesh, at Cast24, we are using chat, right, across the customer journey and across different mediums, as people also in the panel spoke about. If you were to think about customer journey, right? Customer journey is composed of 4 key parts when it comes to buying a used car, right? It is search and discovery is the first step of the journey, followed by the whole booking process, right? You book a test drive or you book the car, and then delivery happens, right? And the last step is post-delivery support. Right now, while we have online platforms where a customer can complete all these 4 steps without any assistance, right, whether human or whether machine assistance, but our customer segment is diverse, right? We have people from across city tiers, across age groups. There's a strong customer base which needs assistance in this whole journey, right? They have multiple questions for which they need answers to. Right? At the end of the day, car buying is the second biggest decision of your life after buying a house, right? So when stakes are high, people need to be sure about multiple things, right? What is a warranty policy? What is a return policy? How does the registration transfer works, right? What if I have some issues tomorrow, right? What is missing in the car given it's a used car, right? So people need answers to those questions, and I think this is where assistance comes in handy. So we have assistance, and we kind of rely more on omni-channel assistance, where we assist our consumer through both call and chat, and where chat adds a lot of value to us is informing the call channel. Right. So, for example, chat is the first mode of contact for a customer with Cars24, right? Customer can come to the chat. We rely very heavily on WhatsApp, right? The bot will kick in. The bot will trying to understand the requirement of the customer, right? What kind of car you are trying to buy? What is your budget, right? Whether you are interested in a petrol car or a diesel car, right? Whether you want a manual transmission or an auto transmission, right? So kind of replicating the app flow where you apply filters and sorting logics, right, onto the WhatsApp bot, capture that requirement, and then for as the query gets complex, right, and then transferring that discussion to an agent, and then the agent has all this information in front of him, right, and customer has also agent is ready to assist that customer from the first go itself, right. The way it helps us is on 2-3 fronts, right. One is it improves agent effectiveness, right, because agent is now able to assist customer in a better way. He has captured all the requirements and he can suggest better cars which matches customer requirement, right, the personalization element that you were touching upon a while back. And the second is it also improves customer experience because customer no longer need to wait first, right, and also are able to share their requirements in an easy to understand manner, right. And I think it is a win-win for both the parties when it comes to leveraging AI, right, for this whole omni-channel experience and assistance in buying the car.
So just one thing, that came to my mind. So this entire process, it goes to a stage, to a certain stage with the help of the bot. But after that, you need the human assistance, right?
Correct. After that, the query might get complex, right? So we have a human assistance, and then post that assistance, right? Since car buying journey is not a one-day journey, unlike any other e-commerce purchase, you typically like search and discover and make your mind in 30 days. So customer might reach out to us again, right? For example, like we assist the customer has made the booking for a test drive, and customer reaches out, okay, then it gets to a transactional phase, right? Okay, where is my car? My test drive is scheduled today, right? What time can I expect the guy to be at my place, right? This is where bot will come in and will suggest options or will give the answers to the customer.
Interesting. Indrajit, I mean, how does, the same question to you, I mean, how are chatbots and AI powering conversation helping your brand? How, in what aspect of the business? I mean, they are easing your load or, helping you create more transactions, driving brand awareness. I mean, how does it help you?
So, actually, it's continuing from what I mentioned earlier. So there are two major use cases, where specifically AI chatbot is helping us a lot. So one is to create a recommendation based on a context, right? So when we are offering, let's say, a combo offer directly on a website versus when it's in a context to what is being already talked about, it changes the perspective in the customer's mind. So it is like using these tools. We have like WhatsApp-based solution, chatbot, which actually is providing like very high effectiveness as compared to our normal like a banner-based combo offers or the sales offer. So it's basically helping us build that context with the user and use that context to increase our revenue or sales, basically.
Okay.
And towards adding like this adds value towards what Ankit also mentioned. So when this context or this conversation is happening, right, so this flows, even when it flows to a salesperson or operations person from fixed craft, he already has the context of what he needs to get in talk to this customer about, what is the discussion about. So he can have a rich communication altogether, like with this person. There is one more use case I'll tell you, like what we did. This is from my previous organization. It's InsurTech. It's among the biggest InsurTech in Southeast Asia. We built it there. So there was claim processing in itself is a tedious task.
Yeah, totally.
It's problematic just to understand how to file the claim, plus how much is the claim settlement you're going to get. It requires you reading through all the documents of the policy. Either you do that or you actually fill up all the information, and like then an operations person will get back to you and iterate and all those things. And we were generating policies by millions in the years, right? So this became a very big problem where we deployed our chatbot to actually solve this. So the overall conversation became, rather than just a user filling a form, it became contextual in terms of he's interacting with a person, but in this case it's a chatbot. All the major information of the flow, like what is really mandatory, rather than just 2-3 pages of a form, is actually filled out through the chatbot. It's contextual, so it knows what is important and what's not. So this tool itself help us like reduce our operational cost by like half. Like the number of people required to do those operation, almost went half. And the overall customer experience for the claim initiation part, right, at least it almost like doubled. Like there was a very considerable difference between like he manually dealing with people versus a context is already built. He knows what documents to provide or what kind of information he needs to provide to speed this up. Otherwise this is a long running task that actually
Yes.
get tedious for both company and the user itself. So these are the like two major places where like chatbot in my history has really helped us out.
And yeah, but do you, I mean, like, at what stage, I mean, like, across both the organizations, as you have seen, in your previous one also at InsurTech and in the current one also. So at what stage, I mean, like, you realize that there's a need for human intervention, while a customer is talking to you?
Yeah, so my take there is it's the question of scale. So
Okay.
once we start hitting those policies in Pasar policy, right, then it was difficult to scale the operation. It's always is like if you talk about any operation scaling or contact
Yeah.
center or operation center, that's your first indicator. Like
Right.
that's where you need to either enable it through technology to like make them perform better, or actually have it supplemented through technology. Like in our case, one big chunk of the task was actually taken up by the chatbot. The document collection, giving the contextual information to the user back without him getting frustrated. So claim is a process when the customer is already upset, like something has happened, that's why he's claiming, right? So you don't want it to be a troublesome experience, because that's
Yeah.
going to reflect back on your brand. That's going to
True.
come back on your brand.
True.
From our journey point of view, from a fixed part point of view, it's more driven towards how much of the conversation you need to do to close a sales, right? So
Right.
if you can help reduce that, that's the trigger where you need to start evaluating like how much of operations or sales you want to put in versus how much effectiveness you're going to bring in when you put that in place.
Okay, interesting. Akash, what has your experience been with personalized with the chatbots and AI powered conversations? At your brands, or some case studies that you might have come across in the industry, or you've seen them.
Yeah, so I will go over the case studies first. So I would like to give the example of Kotak 811. So
Mm-hmm.
during the pandemic time, they have launched this Kotak 811, and they have seen that they could have easily saved the cost of operating the ATM. So in
Mm-hmm.
India, it is a tedious task because since you need a security guard and you need air conditioning and all these things. So people need instant gratification and they want to do it on the phone itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing with the Kotak 811, and then they realized that they should try to move on the digital platforms first. And the second part is the Uber Eats. Uber Eats in Dubai has run the campaign on the Facebook Messenger, and in that they have seen 4 times more purchase and 70% more installs. So they are not bringing the users to their app. So they are well, the whole process is being done on the Facebook Messenger itself. So
Mm-hmm.
this is like something very cool. And Go Mechanic, it's a mix of both chat on app and WhatsApp itself. So
Yeah.
on WhatsApp, the majorly we are using for the collecting NPS feedback and providing invoices to the user, and also for assigning the leads. And we have seen around improvement of around 40% in the turnaround time. Yeah. And if you consider IVR also, then IVR has definitely helped us in doubling up our conversions at 35% of this manpower.
Wow, these are really very very interesting numbers, and it really helps you going a long way in scaling your operations and reducing the load on your customer care teams.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Mahendra, what has your experience been, in using chatbots and AI-powered conversations at your organization?
Well, I think the essence has already been discussed. I think it's pretty common what other members on this forum have already mentioned, right? There has been tremendous improvement. We kind of activated an additional funnel of acquiring customers for our process. And like Ankit mentioned, car buying is not an impulse purchase, right? It's a well thought decision. So it also helped us in establishing our brand a little bit better. Because a chatbot that you can connect with anytime, that gives you relevant responses, basically bringing in convenience and accuracy, and of course the personalization piece together, right? It kind of brings the customers closer to the brand, because with the relevancy of the responses, right? It kind of creates an some kind of empathetic bond with the customers, and helps in ensuring that people are returning, and we also track that data too. So it has been pretty positive for us from the time we have rolled out the chatbots.
Interesting. You brought out a very pertinent point about data. I mean, there's a lot of data collection that happens through the chatbots. So I'm taking this point, and we'll come to that during the flow of the discussion. So Ninad, what I want to understand from you, I mean, at what stage, since you work with a lot of brands, so at what stage or brands are beginning to deploy chatbots, especially in the automotive industry, since you work with a lot of brands, so are there any apprehensions? What are their thoughts, when they think about deploying the chatbots?
Sure. In fact, Devesh, thanks to other panelists, co-panelists which are there. In fact, most of the thoughts which have been shared across, it clearly resonates on what we witness on our platform also, right?
Correct.
So WhatsApp chatbot has been one of the prominent solution which has been extended to end consumer, because that's where most of the users are gravitating towards it, right? So coming back to your question, in fact, the industry's perspective, it's not automotive not being an exception to that, but most of the industry player, when we talk about AI-based or AI-powered chat conversational solutions per se, they think about customer support, right? So
Right.
that's pretty much in sync with what their line of thought is when they look at it, any kind of chatbot solution which is there. But there are so many other avenues which are there in a stated problem from the organization standpoint of view, where consumers are required to be engaged with, as Ankit and Somendra also talked about, this being a high involvement purchase, and it takes time. There has to be a lot of personal touch which is required to be done, and time and again, right? So it needs to be available 24/7, if not 24/7, but at the time when the consumer is thinking about the brand or the brand engagement per se. So from industry player standpoint of view, I would say that besides the major perception which is there are multiple avenues which are opened in terms of pre-purchase journey of any of the consumer to discover the products. Like in used cars, not only in used cars, even in new car, what are the kind of features which are required? But is that brand, product, or model is pretty much akin to what I'm needing as a consumer or not? There is a lot of research which goes into it before making a decision out there, right? So automobile asset purchase is always a high involvement, time consuming, highly researched decision on that sense, and consultative sales becomes far more important out here, right? And deploying major manpower around all the prospect base is going to be fairly challenging. You really don't know which customer is going to get converted at what time period, right? 30-day window could be something which could be aspirational in nature, but certainly there are quite a few things which are structured in nature, which an automobile player could really get into in terms of having to suffice the queries which are there in the beginning for the consumer to start thinking about their brand, their model, their product per se, right? Right from the color to an extent of the technical specification aspect of it. AI-powered chatbot certainly helps, right? Out here, I guess Indrajit talked about some of the claim processes which are there. But if you look at a document of any vehicle which is supposed to be bought in, right? There are so many technical specifications which are there besides the marketing catalog which is available. So a lot of consumers would be interested in looking at it as to what are the key specifications which are there from the engine standpoint of view, whether it is going to give me the kind of mileage which I'm seeking out, for the kind of drive which I'm having going to have on day-to-day basis or not. So documentation cognition as a solution out there could fetch in an answer to their question immediately, rather than they looking up through the entire specification document out here, right? So I'm not talking about only cars, right? There are automotive players which are there in B2B industry, where there are complex requirements which are there from multiple end users, right? So there is a whole lot of gamut of solutioning which is available, which the brand needs to start thinking about. Now, in terms of timing of adoption of conversational bots which are powered by I would say there is no time which is gone by, right? They can adopt it now. But what importantly they need to look at it is what is their objective at the organizational level, whether cost optimization has been the objective for near term, or is it that resource optimization is their objective? Is it that the consumers which they are going to interact is on the customer support aspect of it, which is post sale, or it is that the discovery of their product is something which is of their bigger problem to be solved, right? So they need to look at the adoption of AI-powered chatbot based on the consumer which is gravitating towards them, as well as the stated problems which are being toyed around as a priority within the things. But timing of it, I would say that they should adopt it in phased manner. Initially, it could be structured bots, which they could deploy it for their consumers to interact, engage, and they can look at retaining some of their existing customers as a key priority, and then subsequently get into complexities of the problem statements where they would be able to fulfill the consumer desire on an ongoing basis.
Interesting. So the key fundamental to deploying a chatbot within an organization is to look at the objective that the brand has, and in what scale and volume are the consumers gravitating towards them. If I have to take down the crux of the entire, that's pretty interesting. So before we go forward, there's a small poll which is there for the audiences. We are just now going to present it on a screen. Can we have it has 3 questions. So here's the first question. Do you currently use a messaging platform to engage with customers? Audiences, please take the poll. Please share your answers. 66% says yes, 34% says no. Time for the next question. Do you think instant messaging apps could drastically improve customer experience? And here are the results. Well, 85% believe yes, and 15% believe no. And time for the final question. Would you like to talk to a gupshup expert on how the automotive industry has leveraged chatbots and messaging? I think let's look at the answers now. Wow, 82% believe yes, 18% believe they will. They are thinking. Great. So now, let's continue with our conversation. So Sumendra, I'll begin with you. You touched upon the point of data. Okay. So how are you, utilizing this data, to create further experiences? How are you making use of this data, basically, that's coming through the chatbots?
See, I'll give you an overview of how organizations typically approach, this use case. Now, it totally depends on what the goal of implementation was for, when you rolled out a chatbot in your organization. Right. Some organizations do this to improve operational efficiency. Like Indrajit quoted an example of simplifying the insurance form. Right. There are certain organizations that focus on convenience for customers. Getting instant responses to user queries, or giving them better experiences around different data. Right. Certain organizations focus on content discovery or product discovery, and making it easy for customers to get what they want 24/7, right? And then some organizations want to direct customers to a specific workflow, right? Which can be a customer acquisition channel, or for any specific or a defined purpose, right? Now, depending on what approach an organization takes, right, it can be a singular approach, one of these, or it can be a combination of a bunch of them. And it depends on in which stage an organization is and where the costs lie, right? If I have to measure my chatbot efficiency, then I will look at, what are my optimization statistics? For example, how was I able to reduce my headcount by what percentage? This is around the support function, and then it can be around what was the effectiveness of the chatbot. What are the volumes that my regular call or chat flows have seen going down, right? And what are the wait times, stuff like that. Basically, a typical operation setup, like we can imagine a typical operation setup and how the numbers have been impacted. Then other things are like what are the session counts, what's the consumer adoption of the chatbot, right? What are the repeat sessions from same customers, what are the CSAT scores, right? And then organizations that are focusing heavily on some kind of workflows, they can look at what are the conversion goals that were defined initially and how the organization is meeting them. Things like eventually how many customers were acquired, not just acquired, but through those workflows, what was the end goal, and did we actually meet the end goal that we targeted the chatbot for? So I think these are the key things that can give more insights around whether the chatbot is working for you or not, and how efficient it has been.
Ankit, as Somendra pointed out about the effectiveness of the chatbots, and how one can measure by using different metrics. There's one another aspect of chatbots, and I believe it's very valid in India, maybe not in as much as in the Western countries. It's about the it being multilingual. I speak a particular language, other person down south might be speaking a particular language, somewhere in the east he might be speaking a particular language. A lot of working standards are now no longer English, they are Hinglish. Okay, so what do you see, how do you see the role of multilingual chatbots growing in the industry?
Correct. So I think this is very relevant to our business as well, right? Currently, we operate in more than 50 cities across India, right? For the bike business, and we have a very strong presence down south, right? As in addition to our core base of north, and we assess customers who are from tier 2 and tier 3 towns in those regions, right? So Bangalore, you would still say, for example, would find a little cosmopolitan, right? But when you go deeper into that city, you would want to assess people in their preferred native language, right? So we assess users in Malayalam, in Tamil, right, in Telugu. So even on the chatbot, right, the way we have configured those flows, right, is that the user can choose his or her preferred language, right, and then the chatbot assists the user in that language, or a combination of English and that language, right, just like we have English.
Yes.
So I think that is which what adds personalization, that is what improves customer experience, and that also builds trust and credibility in the mind of the consumer, right, that I as a brand, I'm not a alien brand to them, right, I am a brand which is very kind of native to them and is closely associated with them.
No, that's pretty and I think going forward, this is more important as brands penetrate deeper and deeper into multiple pockets across the country. They need to be very 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 hands-on with the language they speak, because I think that you rightly mentioned that develops a lot of trust. If I am able to speak in your language, there's a different level of comfort that a customer feels. Absolutely right. Coming Indrajit, this is a very you mentioned about the human intervention, at what stage the human intervention should be there. But do you think an end-to-end conversation is possible with the chatbot, where there is no human intervention required, and it can completely take the conversation to the final process, to the sales or to the post-sales process?
So I'll basically divide it based on the chatbots that are already there in the market, right? So if you look at the space, so basically the first type of chatbot that exists in our space, or most commonly uses a menu base or an option base, where user gets triggered from the chatbot on what are the options to select. Correct. And this basically solves a very important problem of repetitive questions. So can this answer all of the human questions? the answer to that is mostly true, right? Because the questions are repeating in the nature, right? So the system already knows answer to those questions, and these are the
Right.
most common chatbot you will see out there in the industry. Like there'll be multitude. It's a menu-driven chatbot system where the user is selecting options.
Yes.
The most
Yes.
obvious type of like use case for this is a customer support. So at present, like looking at the global research, 70 around 70% is the number which is roundabout quoted, which is completely handled by the AI chatbot in this kind of a setup,
Mm.
because of the nature of the questions or the interaction that user is having.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is of course need, or if the need arises that the customer is not satisfied by the answer, then it is transitioned over to a human counterpart.
Right.
The other part of the chatbot, or where we are more evolving towards, is like towards a true NLP based system, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is not just taking input from a customer, but also based on the what keywords he is used, what
Mm-hmm.
context is being talked about, what are the previous conversation of this person.
Mm.
Based on that, it is formulating an answer.
Right.
This is where it is heading to. It will create a much richer and deep conversation with the customer. But here the current conversion ratio, if I say, like between the complete handling of AI to human, is
Uh-huh.
still less. But
Okay.
that's a very solid direction to be going on into. Like it is believed, like going forward, like around 70 to 80% of all our chatbot basically will be used for 70 to 80% of conversations where customer support was being used. So like if you
Wow.
see the use cases in our ride hailing applications, right,
Right.
or
Right.
orders, like it's almost taken over. Like there's
Yes.
like 70 to 80% of that order management or post order services that are being provided, right, are completely taken over by the chatbot. But the remaining conversations are still open. Like that's still a journey that needs to be, like it needs to take on. And this is a inherent problem to NLP based solutions. If you look at it from that point of view, like language processing per se is difficult. Like as Ankit was mentioning, right, it is a combination of Hindi, English, and
Rich.
multiple, and add slangs to it, right, rather than just word, right? Nobody writes a formal English or a formal Hindi, right?
Right.
There's a local taint to everything that we are doing. So that creates much bigger problem. So,
Mm.
and apart from that, there is social or demographic basis biases so if you are training your machine learning model, your deep learning models based on the overall history of the conversation, or like feeding in a lot of data, which Sumendra was mentioning, to the AI chatbot and making it learn through those models, then it will pick up those biases in its conversation. Like this is one of the problem which evolved AI just like truly AI based solution will always have. But yeah, the menu base is like totally, as of now, for simple problem, it's able to really do really well, and that percent is going to increase over the time.
Right, right. Ninad, I want to bring you in at this point. There's a very interesting point Indrajit has pointed, especially with the use of language, and, multiple geographies have, multiple lingos, and especially with the local lingos. So how is the, evolution of chatbots going forward, by processing more historic conversations? I mean, like, what's the solution to this?
Yeah, I must quote you. One of my friend, a very close friend, he is heading one of the very large FMCG brand, and for last almost 22 years that he is working with the organization. So he is there in the distribution game, right? So he tells me, every 25 kilometers away from the center of the city, there's a new city altogether.
Yes.
People talk in a very different dialect, right? In fact, I think talked about it being Bangalore urban and Bangalore suburban. It could be very different, right? In that sense, it's not only in southern languages per se, but yeah, even within north, even within Maharashtra, for that matter, people though have native language which could be say Marathi or Hindi, or for that matter Tamil or Kannada, but the dialect changes, right? So voice-powered chatbot have started to learn the local dialects, right? This is more like an India-specific problem because we have like uh, diversity out here, and many languages are being spoken by the citizens as such. So for voice-based chatbot solutions, which have been being worked upon over a period of time. I remember while I was working in Rediff, voice search from Google was so very pathetic at that particular point in time. I'm talking about like 14 years back. But over a period of time, now we are talking to Google Assistant out here, which is a home-based smart device, which understands me as well as my kid as well as my wife at the same within the same premise, right? And likewise, it is able to understand it in multiple geographies within the country that we live in. So I'm saying it's evolving for sure. Multilingual capability in native languages is no more a challenge, but yeah, dialect is certainly a challenge. On a text-based chat applications out there, there are multiple nuances out here, right? One is a very personalized way of interacting with the chatbot with a broken English or broken native language or hybrid language, which is combined together between two, which is a normal course in time that we speak. But in terms of domain specific vocabulary, right? Now, AI language models have already adopted industry specific or domain specific vocabulary pretty much in. So identifying a context and an intent through a free flowing text is no more a challenge as of today. While the queries will become complex, may become complex in terms of a bot to handle it to a largest extent possible and give a desired result immediately with an accuracy of maybe 90%. But I would certainly justify the statement which Indrajit was making it, that if you look at many-based, structured queries which are being toyed around and being answered by conversational AI-powered bot, there is a massive amount of accuracy level which is being pushed across with 100% NPS score which has been coming in, right? But yeah, complexities comes in when we are talking about multilingual capabilities where there are human interventions which are certainly are required. So human in the loop has been the current story, but directionally the AI is moving towards understanding how the human is able to interact and pose questions and is able to derive the context and intent out of it with right frame of accuracy over a period of time. But yeah, training modules which are NLP led are crux to it. The implementation of it is far more important, because how you are putting those algorithms to understand those queries and learn over a period of time with the data set which has been gathered upon are far more important from that perspective. So adoption to AI powered conversational bots are now the mainstream, which hasn't been the case earlier, though the tech has been available. But I guess directionally, while we are thinking about how human intervention so far has been there to an extent of maybe 20-30% of the cases, for those edge cases where complexities are there, those are going to get culled out, and maybe there will be far more derived involvement which could be there from the chatbot to answer things appropriately.
Interesting. Akash, I want to touch another interesting, aspect of chatbots, and then I'll come, to all my participants for their opinions on it. I mean, like, how chatbots are, playing a key role in the overall omni-channel strategy of the brands.
So it's all about the integration, I think. If they are able to collect their data, if you have done a booking on the app itself, and if you are able to keep the communication flowing via WhatsApp, then that's the best way to integrate the chatbot. And the challenges which I feel via the chatbot is that I think the menu based one is generally have the higher intent, and still apart from the dialect, I think there is more things to solve, like sarcasm. Sometimes if the customer is having frustrated mood and they say that my car is not getting serviced properly, you have done very good service of my car, then it's very difficult to understand the customer's sentiment and mood.
Interesting. Ankit, what's your thought, on chatbots being a part of the overall omni-channel strategy for brands?
Correct. I think with the way consumer preferences are changing, right? Omni-channel assumes a lot of importance, right? And for a true omni-channel experience, different chat mediums have to talk to each other, right? Let me give you an example, right? Say someone who buy a product, or in our case buy a car, right, is not happy with the purchase. He's facing some post-purchase issues with the support, and he raises a complaint on Twitter, right? And then say that person is redirected to a chat, but that WhatsApp chat that he does after that complaint should be talking to that Twitter mode, right? Or that Twitter complaint, that information should be there, right? So that the customer could be assisted easily. Similarly, customer has a chat on day 1, right? And he wants to reach out to us again on day 10. And at that time, he wants to get on a call, right? So whatever conversation happened in that chat on day 1, right, should be easily available to the call center agent, right? He should have that interaction history on what happened between these two people, right? Or in this case, between the bot and the customer, so that the agent can like take it forward from there rather than starting it from scratch, right? And it helps customer in terms of his or her experience also. And similarly, like WhatsApp chat should be could be very well integrated with your in-app chat, right? So I have started a conversation on WhatsApp, but then I'm on the app, I'm exploring a product, I don't want to go back to WhatsApp, I want to have my question answered there itself, so I will just initiate a chat conversation there, right? So I think these three, as Akash also said, right, these different systems have to talk to each other for a true omni-channel experience, and it helps fabulously well in terms of customer experience and CSAT.
Correct. So Vindra, what's your thought on this? I mean, like, the role of chatbots in over the omni-channel strategy for brands. I mean, like, how the integration across multiple mediums can be really helpful.
Devesh, I think Ankit covered it pretty nicely. That you can have chatbot for any specific purpose, but then eventually it has to tie across other channels, and it has to tie very nicely and well integrated, so that the information flow is symmetric, and for a consumer it stays seamless, right? So I think that is overall the crux of how the system should be built.
Correct. And also, in your opinion, I mean, like, what do you think? I mean, like, are chatbot more towards, incremental sales? If you have to classify them into a bucket of, in terms of incremental sales, or, converging leads, or, at some point, I mean, like, it could also be seen as, somewhere in the brand building bucket. Which one would you want to classify them into?
I think it depends on the organization and what the organization is trying to achieve. For example, if I think that I'll be able to sell a car using a chatbot, then I think it's a little far-fetched dream, because like I said, it's not an impulse purchase. But if Amazon wants to sell a shampoo bottle using a chatbot, I think it's easily attainable. So it depends on what the organization is selling, what's the value proposition, and what's the customer knowledge, and what's the customer segment that they're trying to target. So it will vary. But in the longer run, I think a lot of organizations will focus on merging their transaction journeys along with chatbot, at least for the simplified processes.
Okay, right. Ninad, I mean, like, how's the global market, global brands looking to, especially in the auto industry, looking at the chatbots? Before we're anyways running out of time, so I want to take the global understanding of how they are deploying chatbots.
Yeah, I'll try and be brief while the other co-panelists which are there from the industry, they will have a better perspective on this. But yeah, generally to help you understand in terms of overall adoption globally, right? So we are not behind the global peers as of being India. But yeah, I'll consider global being India together inclusively. So out here, right from within car and outside car, right? There are too many things which are being done in terms of conversational layer, which is being given out as a alternative for an end user or the car owner to interact with his vehicle. Not only within the right from navigation from one point to point B, to an extent of playing the choice of the preferred music which is there in the car, or changing the climate of the in-room within the car in itself, to an extent of getting the car locked and unlocked remotely, right? So all these kind of tech adoption which has been happening, and automobile industry has been on the forefront of it, because tech has been the innovation piece which has already been has always been on the forefront of most of the automotive companies, which have been there for 100 years together, right? So if you look at the recent example of smart car, which has been toyed around, and for India as an introduction, which was MG, which started to talk to the owner, right, on its own, which was a revelation for some of the customers. So for the want of a stronger differentiation, the automotive players are trying to look at newer avenues and advanced technologies where they would be able to connect the car owners or asset owners or the passengers within the vehicle in an effective manner to engage with them and to give them what it is desired to have at that particular point in time. Talking about the other industry within the industry, which is EV, right? EV is all about having a modern tech, which is completely packed under a very small gadget, so to say. Now, out here, without any engine, the vehicle is able to converse with the end user or the owner in an effective manner, right from charging the battery to an extent of replacing the battery to an extent of getting that vehicle from point A to point B. Everything is being talked by the vehicle in a manner which is desired by the owner, right? So I'm saying that beyond the conversational support cases or the user journeys that we have been talking about, there has been massive amount of adoption which is happening globally within the automotive industry from consumer connect side of it. But if you look at from industry standpoint of view, right, from supply chain to the distribution network, there is massive amount of AI which is being built out and conversational layers which have been extended to all the supply chain ecosystem partners. So we haven't really touched upon that, but on some other day, I would pause it here and maybe others would be able to contribute to this.
Right, right. Before I end up the session, I want a very quick question to all of the panelists today. What are the kind of disruptions that you would want to see in the chatbots? Ankit, I'll begin with you first.
Right. I think one thing that we could benefit strongly, right, is this whole ability to parse the information that is there in the chatbot, right? As other panelists also pointed out, there are different dialects in which customer converse, right? So chatbot also serves as a very strong information or source of consumer insights, right? What consumers are liking about the brand, what they are not liking about the brand, right? And it could inform our product decisions. So just like being able to parse those dialects at a certain degree of accuracy, right, and informing the teams, I think that is something that could benefit us a lot.
Interesting. Indrajit, what's your thought? I mean, like, what are the kind of disruptions that you would like to see?
My thought is, like, if we were to make a truly AI based chatbot, right, it will require a lot of context building and specific to the industries which we are talking to. So if the chatbot companies which are there now can make pre-packaging contextual packages, right, or knowledge centers, which can be used as a base on which we can add our own branding or brand-based context or our specific, like automobile sector could have a specific chatbot that has a context which is already trained for like months of conversation, and that becomes like, instead of a months to launch a really good AI based chatbot, it comes down to like week probably to add a layer on that. And that could be a true value add from a chat based platform to the verticals which are there in the industry.
Okay. Akash, your turn. What's
Yeah, so I think Indra did it quite well. So most of the channels are quite biased towards the e-commerce. So you can easily add catalog on the WhatsApp, and so similarly, if some kind of solution can be there for some car service space or some services based company spaces, so that would be really well in case of disruption. Like in case I gave you an example of Uber Eats, the whole process happened over the Facebook Messenger. So if something like that can happen in the future over the WhatsApp, then that would be good.
Okay. So Mendra, what's your thought? I mean, like, what are kind of disruptions that you would want to see?
I think as of now, it should be more like building better context capability, as closer to NLP as possible, and something that can build knowledge from existing information of a customer that we have, kind of corroborate with the information that we have received while interacting with the customer, and then based on this, give a very conclusive guidance or information to the customer, more like typically what a human would do.
Okay. We have a very interesting audience question here, and I want to put it in front of you. Is bot a convenience factor to the customer, or a convincing tool for a customer to buy the car or any other product? Who would want to take that up? Nina, do you want to take it up?
Yeah, why not? In fact, convenience for sure, because there are no two ways about it, right? So all of us, we agree, and almost like 80% of the poll also did so. Convincing, obviously, that could be something which is very aspirational in nature. Like Somendra talked about, I wish my business objective is selling a car over a chatbot, right? But yeah, convincing part can be addressed through a marketing channel. Ankit would be able to comment more appropriately on that. But certainly, managing the customer queries in a manner it is required is something which is far more convincing for an end user, where there is a personal touch which is involved, right? So chatbots certainly can do a job to a certain extent, I would say, in terms of making sure that there is right amount of right level of enticement which is being done to the consumer's decision. It could recommend relevant products which is of personal choice for that particular customer who's interacting with the chatbot. It could influence the decision to a certain extent by giving a comparative view. So I would say that convincing as an approach from the chatbot part of it, it's pretty much there. How you deploy and how you implement the chatbot solution for the end user to interact and get convinced upon is something is organization's objective that you need to drive it upon.
Right. And also, there's another one which is focusing on customer retention, and how does chatbot helps in the customer retention. So I think Ankit, you would want to take that.
Right. So I think there are two parts to this, right? One is the kind of purchase that we are talking about, right? It's a one-time purchase, typically as far as buying a car is concerned. But still, right, even after one-time purchase, customer would need consistent support, right? So I would call, or I would define retention in a way where we are able to like engage customer for a period of 6-7 months, even after right, he or she has made the purchase, right? Or even longer than that, and are able to give him the required support for post-purchase concerns, right? And I think this is where chatbot comes in very handy, can address customers' questions or concerns there.
Any thoughts, Somendra?
Nothing specific as such, but I think again, Ankit captured things pretty nicely. It's just about looking at the LTV of the customer and trying to figure out how we can engage usage of AI and improve the experience throughout the LTV. Generally, for a large ticket item, especially like an automobile or a house, it's considered as a one-time purchase. But if depending on the age of the customer, I think people typically end up buying 3 to 5 vehicles during their stipulated course. So if we are able to engage customers for a longer period of time, I think it's going to benefit us overall.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I mean, it was a really, really interesting session, to have with you guys, and a lot of points actually came up during the discussion. I mean, how a brand should be deploying the chatbots, at what stage they should be deploying the chatbots, and they should have their objectives in the mind very clear. There's a lot of global perspective to which Ninad shared, and it was really very interesting to have this discussion with you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here, and look forward to catching with you in some other interesting discussions in future. Thank you, everyone.